introduce yourself to the peeps here if they don't know who you are.
Oh, well, my name's Matt, and I'm a PA. I practice medical weight loss. I've been a PA for 17 years and had a lot of issues myself with yo-yo dieting for many, many years, well over 20 years, and figured it out about 5 years ago, but learned a lot in that process, and it drove me to leaving emergency medicine, and now I practice medical weight loss. So that's what I do clinically today.
I love it. Woot woot. So, how much have you lost, Matt?
90.
Holy moly.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Not as much as others, but it's I always feel a little like
Matt.
you know
Matt.
what
Don't you even dare.
Okay. All right.
We have other people
Yeah.
like that. We have other people like that. They're like, I haven't lost as much as others. I don't feel like I belong. Was that what you were going to say, Matt, when I cut you off so rudely?
I mean, hinting around at it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but let's talk about how much muscle you've gained.
It has been a lot, but it's a weird visual, like optical illusion, because I've worked out for a long time. Like, even would follow my dad to the gym when I was in like 7 or 8, and then playing baseball like really drove me to want to lift weights, because my childhood hero Nolan Ryan was a big advocate of weightlifting to prolong his career, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds good to me. But at different points in life, there were different motivations for like going to the gym. But ultimately, I wanted to be flexible but strong and mobile, and all those things. And there was an element of vanity to it too, especially early on. Um, and then, but once I got to my 40s, it's become more about like seeing people who are in their 50s or 60s or 70s who do stay active and somehow are able to maintain good health and longevity. And I'm like, that's actually a lot more interesting and appealing now. and
Absolutely.
and so that became a big motivator, but also just understanding the medical aspects of body recomposition was fascinating enough to me. And I'm like, well, I've got a medical license as a PA.
Mm-hmm.
So why not get more into this? Because I think it's very underutilized as like how people understand that. Even in the medical field, people don't really understand it very well.
Talk
And if
about
I have
that.
a lived experience with it, well, um,
Awkward.
oh, sorry.
Just kidding.
I realized when you close the screen, it paused it. Sorry. I know. Sorry, I'm wasting your time with pausing my screen.
You're not wasting
Um,
your time.
all right. Well, you know, I think when we're understanding like what are drivers of poor metabolic health, there are so many factors that play into that. There's a psychological aspect, there's a genetic aspect, there's a metabolic aspect, there's your own food preferences of how you grew up, right? But if we're going to look at the body and what is a physiologic contribution to how metabolism can change, then body composition, I think, gets overlooked more than it probably should.
Mm.
Because we know that when people have more adiposity, especially the unhealthy visceral fat
Right.
that gets into liver, that surrounds abdominal organs, and at the same time, having less activity, which means retain less muscle mass, that's where we see the greatest chance of imbalance for metabolic health.
Yes, agreed.
And when we see studies in real people, we put them in trials. We either put them in prospective trials, or we looked at a population over time and see what are the drivers of people who do have a overall improvement in metabolic health. Then we see reducing adiposity, we see improving activity contributes a lot to improving the incidence of like insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease, kidney dysfunction, strokes, blood, peripheral arterial disease, and Alzheimer's, like things that really do make a difference collectively as we get older and contribute to either someone's potential for longevity versus their potential for, you know, not being as healthy as they get older.
Absolutely. So if someone's just starting out and in your expertise, like with, maybe no movement whatsoever, or exercise, let's say, it's different, right? Movement versus exercise. But let's just say they're starting out completely foreign to them, if anything. What advice do you give them?
I want them to find something that they can do that is achievable for them.
Yeah.
So, something that I have, noticed with a lot of people, which is patience of mind, but also in kind of listening more to lives is, um, you know, if someone is having difficulty with simply getting out of a chair, then we work on that activity of doing like chair yoga or chair aerobics.
Right.
Or, someone asked me just yesterday in my life, what do you think about an under the desk elliptical?
Right.
I'm like, that's perfect. If you're at least mobile, you are at least exerting more energy than you otherwise would, and you get a little bit more mobility. And that, like doing that consistently, might get you to want to actually get up and, have the ability to go walk or do other activities. It can be a gradual approach,
Yeah.
but it's
Agreed.
meeting people where they're at.
I was just going to say that because so many people, we've grown up thinking, well, I've got to do this or that to be successful, to really think like I'm actually working out, when in reality, you've got to meet people where they're at. And that in turn, if we work with them in those little bits of like little moments, then they feel like they can actually do something, and it propels them to keep moving and keep trying. And that's the whole goal.
Yeah. And especially if your goal is to do a certain activity, then, you know, gearing your activity to make you better at that goal. Let's say, for instance, yesterday I had a patient who told me, hey, I really want to get back to hiring my tennis coach because I used to play tennis and I used to love it. And I even said, well, what about pickleball? Would that be a happy medium for now? And she's like, I ain't a pickleball person. I want to go tennis. Like that tennis is what I actually enjoy. And I'm like, cool. All right. So working towards that goal of you being able to contact your tennis coach. And she actually reached out to them because she was like, I know if I don't reach out, then I'm never going to follow up with them. And while the iron is hot, as far as I want to strike while the iron is hot and my motivation is high, I want to reach out to them, even if I physically can't do it right now.
Right.
And that's a huge step of like, okay, I really want to do this. If I commit and I, get my coach back involved, then that'll at least be more motivating for me to want to get more active so I can get back to that I want to do.
Yeah, I love that. You had touched a part about the brain, like with Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can talk a little bit about that when it comes to just, obviously our mental health, but really how movement can help so much when it comes to memory and all of that. Like, how does that correlate together?
I mean, I don't have as much like expert level understanding of
Yeah.
that, but what I would suspect is that when you are more physically active, you are at least having better blood flow
Mm-hmm.
to your brain, including, right?
Yep.
And thus you are less likely to have areas of your brain that are underperfused. So there's like, areas of your brain that aren't getting as much blood, which sometimes Alzheimer's results from little bits of like mini strokes that add up over time, or we call lacunar infarcts,
Mm-hmm.
where there's little pockets of the brain that they just don't get enough blood, so they die off. And ultimately, like those little areas that die off can add up to like someone's change in their mentality. Alzheimer's being one of them. Like vascular dementia is a known cause of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And so people who are more physically active are able to have better perfusion to their brain over time. And so also less likely to have lower incidence of what's called atherosclerosis, or, like plaque buildup in arteries. And the plaque builds up not just in arteries in your heart, but everywhere,
Right. We just don't
including
hear
in the
about that.
brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so
I
important.
mean,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, we've even in the medical field tried to change the terminology of stroke to brain attack in order to highlight like how similar the pathophysiology actually is. It just results in very different symptoms when you experience a stroke versus a heart attack.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with my mom, who does not have Alzheimer's or anything, but her lack of movement in the last 5 years has played a huge significance in her cognitive function. And
Yeah.
it's like beating a dead horse. Because my mom is stubborn. She's 78. She'll be like, whatever. She'll complain. And I'm sure people can understand this if they have older parents. She'll complain, she'll bitch and moan about it, but then I'm like, well, this and that and do this. And she'll just be like, whatever.
Hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
unfortunate because I've seen her decline hugely in her cognitive ability because of the lack of moving her body.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge factor with it. And Drew mentioned how prolonged elevated glucose can also contribute to this, and he's 100% right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have like insulin resistance and you have constant elevated glucose, those little sugar molecules are going to cause, damage over time to blood vessels and brain tissue. So it all kind of collectively adds up. And if you are more active, you are able to better utilize carbohydrates and sugars so that you do have less issues with, elevated blood sugar.
Yeah. I think it's always so important to like remind people that like the brain and the gut, the brain and the body, like we're all one, it's like not necessarily separate, right? I mean, it's all
Hmm.
functioning together, and it's so important that it just is talked about like that because people don't correlate movement and exercise to brain health. They just don't.
Yeah. No, they really,
Hmm.
they either, I mean, they do, but, it's also, I think, more incumbent upon, us in the medical field. And I'm kind of going back to the conversation that happened last night, which was fascinating.
Hmm.
But having medical providers be more upfront about why there's benefits to this, I think is important. Because in the primary care office, there's so little time to be able to talk about all different medical issues, but maybe that comes down to reprioritizing how primary care is delivered, you know?
Hmm.
And I never understood that until I was out practicing for a long time. And, seeing the frustrations of people who do work in primary care, but also the frustrations of patients where there's this unmet expectations of like, people want to be healthier. Primary care doctors believe that they are doing what they need to help them be healthier, but there's still this giant like mismatch of like
Yep.
priorities and desires and needs. So pushing our providers to want to be more in that space of encouraging exercise, but knowing how to do it, but also understanding weight loss in a better way can, I think, help
Yeah.
better with that. And the only thing I can do is just do my own part with my patients, but also try to walk the walk as well to say, I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm also not that young. I kind of sit in this weird middle ground. I guess that's why they call it middle age.
Yeah.
But where I'm like, if I'm going to recommend something or encourage something, then I want to make sure that that I'm at least willing to walk the walk with you, but also meet you where you're at so that we can achieve success.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely vital that this is how this starts to play. I mean, it's so important for that to be talked about and for us to kind of share that with our providers. And I feel like I'm
But can I
hearing
ask?
myself. I may not
Can
be.
I ask you? No.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, AJ? What was your experience like with primary care providers as you were kind of going through life as an adult?
The absolute worst. I was told I had PCOS. I was not explained what that was. I was just given medication, spironolactone and metformin. I didn't understand
Mm.
what that was. I just thought it was a lot of cysts on my ovaries. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just trying to take something to get those cysts off. I had no idea, no explanation about what that meant, insulin resistance, none of it, none of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there was no explanation. There was no guidance. There was no treatment plan. There was no deep understanding of anything. I just felt like I was taking something to cover or mask whatever it was. And I still had no clue what was going on.
And in trying and not just seeing that like with you, but there was countless examples of that happening
Mm-hmm.
in primary care offices around the US.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads people to have a distrust in the medical profession. And and I understand like people are going to want to seek answers to feel better, but also like what's going on with me.
Yeah.
And if we're not smarter about that from the medical side, then we're going to lose patients to people who are willing to take advantage of others.
Wreak havoc.
And
Absolutely.
yes,
I
yeah,
think when
and
someone starts out in this field, I assume this, I could be wrong. Like they genuinely are like, I want to help. I want to be there to change lives. But then this system is kind of built to fail that, right? Because they're
Yeah.
pressured as doctors to have patients every 15 minutes and they're, and then becomes like this whole, like, how many patients going to get and money. And then they lose, I think, track of like the bigger picture in a way.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
things just kind of start to shift in their mind where they're not thinking genuinely about the person as a whole. And they're just trying to just crank out stuff, right? And it may be they don't want it that way, but the system is made that way. And so I think unless that core system changes for the doctors, I think it's going to be hard for them to actually remember at least about why they're doing the things that they're doing. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it completely makes sense because that kind of fundamental change in how medical care is delivered, it's not an overnight thing, and it's not something that's just going to be changed with a couple of passing some new laws or like it's going to take generation of like intention to say patients want to be healthier. What are we doing wrong in the primary care space or just in medicine where we are not delivering on that? And we have to be held accountable to that and police each other. And
absolutely,
the more of us, I think, that hopefully step into this field of, working in obesity medicine and bring different perspectives to it, then we can collectively add to our better understanding of like, how do we achieve like proper treatment of obesity and sustainable weight loss, or just help people live healthier lives, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah, this might be a hot take, but I think insurances, companies, and doctors working with insurance kind of has forced the hand of some of these doctors, right? So I have a doctor that doesn't take insurance, right? And I pay him monthly, and we sit for an hour because he can. We sit and we chat and we talk, and we have the ability to text each other and call each other, and he loves it because he feels like this is allowing him to be there for the patient without having that insurance, mandate all these things. And that's a whole complex other story. But I feel like, at least with my doctor, this is allowing him to be the doctor he's wanted to be and change lives and do what he can for the whole person versus working under that criteria of insurance and having to press out certain people and make, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a different thing.
Oh yeah. I find that when I used to look at concierge medicine as like, well, you're just looking to just make a buck off of people, because you want more of the pie for yourself. And there are no doubt there are some docs in that space who do that. But also there's an equal and probably I would say larger number of people who are frustrated by being told by insurance companies, by hospital administration, by, let's say, the clinic management of where they work in a big system, that I can't do what I need for this patient, and you're giving me 40 patients a day, and there's no way I can address what I need to in that space, And I experienced a small part of that.
He was like, screw it. I'm not doing this anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's like, as you pointed out, a lot of us got into medicine because we do want to help people and we have the best of intentions. And
then the system derails you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So when you can demonstrate better outcomes in a concierge model, then hopefully what happens is that we develop actual evidence that shows that it works. And then ultimately insurance is more likely to cover some of these things that were maybe more pioneered in the concierge setting. So that's how you kind of change medicine from using the capitalist society we live in order to try to make improvements. And so also working on advocacy, working on changing insurance policy and laws. So it all kind of adds together, hopefully, for better medical care.
Absolutely. And that's the hope. And it's going to take a lot of time. But I think the more we communicate, the more we talk to our doctors, the more we advocate, it's in the push of the right direction. It's going to take some time, though.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time. And I wish I had the answer for it, but
I know.
I want to at least do my very small part of, what I can with it.
And that's all we can do. Ourselves, individually, do what we can, keep moving forward and trying our best. That's all we can do.
Yes, 100%.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, I have got to go.
Oh, okay. You can just kick me out then.
Okay. I might put this little snippet on YouTube, even though I've interviewed before. It was kind of a nice little conversation about that.
Sure. Sounds good.
So anyway, yeah, thank you for coming up. Thank you for filling the space. Thank you, Shannon, for letting Matt come up. Woo!
Oh, they said thank you for letting me come on and talk. Yeah, she's like, what's this let shit?
All right.
All right.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Matt.
thank you
Oh,
so
by
much,
the way,
AJ.
guys, if you haven't
Oh,
followed Matt, give him a follow. He goes live 6 p.m. Central Time every day, right? Monday through Friday, maybe?
yes, but not tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I am very much unavailable.
Okay.